The legendary Bob Dylan turns 81 later this month. He's still living life on the road, but as John Dickerson discovers, his words have found a permanent home.
Dylan's famous decision to play electric guitar at the 1965 Newport Folk Festival, which caused such an uproar that folk legend Pete Seeger was rumored to have called for an axe to cut Dylan's cable.
At 83, Bob Dylan continues to defy expectations with his ever-evolving artistry, diverse real estate holdings, and surprising personal choices. Born Robert Allen Zimmerman, this music legend soared to fame with timeless folk anthems and provocative electric transformations. Yet behind the scenes, Dylan's secret marriages, changing spirituality, and unwavering creative drive paint an even richer portrait. From Malibu's Point Doom to Hush Hush gospel recordings, you'll be truly astonished by how Bob Dylan spends his twilight years, still forging new paths today. Early musical influence. Bob Dylan's early musical influences were shaped by the sounds he heard growing up in Hibbing, Minnesota. As a young boy, he stayed up late tuning into distant radio stations. These stations played rhythm and blues from places like Shreveport, Louisiana, and they opened his mind to new beats and voices. Dylan's family also shared various folk records, exposing him to ballads that sparked a deeper interest in storytelling through music. When he reached his teenage years, Dylan became fascinated with rock and roll. He listened to Elvis Presley, Little Richard, and other popular stars who brought energy and attitude to every performance. Their shows inspired him to join local bands. One of these was the Golden Chords, a group formed with friends during high school. They played at local events and covered loud rock tunes such as Rock and Roll Is Here to Stay. In fact, the school principal once cut the microphone because their music was too raucous for a talent show. Even in these early days, Dylan was pushing boundaries. He wanted to blend the raw spirit of rock with the honest storytelling of folk. After high school, Dylan enrolled at the University of Minnesota, but his heart was set on exploring music further. During this time, he shifted focus toward folk songs. He found folk music's themes of struggle, hope, and faith more soulful than the teenage energy of rock. Folk legends like Woody Guthrie and Pete Seeger offered a path to deeper lyrics. Dylan loved how these masters used music to comment on social issues, and he wanted to do the same. Soon, Dylan left for New York City in 1961, aiming to meet Woody Guthrie, his idol. He spent time in Greenwich Village, the heart of the folk scene, playing in small clubs and coffee houses. Songs about everyday people, hard work, and heartbreak all came to life before his eyes. He absorbed everything he could, from classic blues numbers to ancient folk melodies learned from other musicians. This mix of influences, blues from the radio, rock and roll power, and folk storytelling, created Dylan's unique sound. It drove him to experiment, writing music both heartfelt and sharp. These early experiences shaped Bob Dylan into the singer-songwriter the world would soon discover. By blending the grit of rock, the sincerity of folk, and the rhythms of blues, Dylan laid the groundwork for a career that would change modern music forever. Early relationships. Bob Dylan's early love life had a huge impact on his growth as a musician and writer. The first major relationship people talk about involved a girl named Sue Ralston. They were together when Dylan was still unknown and trying to break into the music business. Their bond was so strong that she became his muse for some of his early songs, including one of his most beloved tracks, Don't Think Twice, It's All Right. Many fans also recognize their portrait on the cover of The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, which has become a classic image in music history. Despite having a deep connection, though, they broke up in 1964. Putting an end to a romance that helped shape Dylan's early sound. Soon after, Dylan began a famous musical and personal relationship with Joan Baez, often called the Queen of Folk. Both were passionate about social justice and the growing folk movement in the early 1960s. They sang together at major events, including the 1963 Newport Folk Festival. Their chemistry, both on stage and off, captured the world's attention. Yet over time, they drifted apart romantically, though they still performed together on and off. By 1965, their romantic bond had faded, but their respect for each other's art remained strong. In 1965, Dylan surprised many people by getting married to a woman named Sarah. They had 4 children together: Jesse, Anna, Samuel, and Jacob. and also took in Maria, Sarah's daughter from a previous marriage. Sarah played a key part in Dylan's life, even appearing in his film Ronaldo and Clara. The two spent much of the late 1960s and early 1970s together, but their marriage did not last. By 1977, Sarah and Dylan were divorced, leaving behind memories and songs that hinted at their struggles. Another lesser-known chapter in Dylan's love life came in 1986, when he had a daughter, Desiree Gabrielle Dennis Dylan, with his backup singer, Carolyn Dennis. To the world, this was a secret for years, until a 2001 memoir made it public. Although they married, the relationship did not last, and in 1992, they divorced. Throughout these early years of change and growth, Dylan's relationships proved to be a constant source of inspiration for his music. His lyrics often reflected the ups and downs of love, and fans became hungry for clues about the stories behind each song. Many still believe it is in these personal tales that Dylan found his most powerful art. Marriage to Sarah Dylan. Bob Dylan's marriage to Sarah Dylan was a key chapter in his life, filled with both joyful moments and challenges that shaped his music and personal journey. They wed in 1965, a period when Dylan was already famous for his folk and protest songs. Though details of their courtship remain private, it is clear that Sarah was a central figure during Dylan's growth as an artist. At the time, he was making the shift from acoustic folk to a more electric sound, and his decision to expand creatively drew both praise and criticism from fans. Amid that shifting musical scene, Sarah offered comfort, companionship, and a sense of home. Their union soon became a family affair. Together, they had 4 children: Jesse, Anna, Samuel, and Jacob. They also took in Maria, Sarah's daughter from a previous marriage. Home life matters appear to have grounded Dylan, especially during the tumultuous late 1960s. While controversies swirled around him, such as the uproar over his electric performances and the sudden fame that made him a public figure, Sarah was there, building a household to which he could return. She even played a part in Dylan's 1978 film Ronaldo and Clara, showcasing their closeness in both his personal and creative worlds. Many believe that her steady influence helped Dylan stay focused on his art, even when he took breaks from touring or recording. Yet, like many famous unions, theirs was not without strain. The 1970s brought changes to Dylan's musical direction and personal outlook. Some say that the demands of fame made their marriage difficult, while others believe the couple simply grew apart. By 1977, their relationship came to an end in divorce, marking the close of a significant era for Dylan. Despite the breakup, Sarah remained the mother of his children and an important figure in his story. Over time, fans and researchers alike have tried to piece together how Sarah's presence shaped Dylan's songs, particularly those written during their marriage. Although Bob Dylan would go on to have other relationships, his marriage to Sarah left a lasting mark on his life and music. From family moments gathered in Malibu, to the creative spark that glowed inside the recording studio, their shared years tell a tale of love, growth, and inevitable change. Today, many of Dylan's admirers look back on his chapter with Sarah as one of the most fascinating periods in his long, eventful journey. Secret marriage to Carolyn Dennis. Bob Dylan's secret marriage to Carolyn Dennis is one of the most interesting chapters of his personal life. Carolyn first entered Dylan's world as a backup singer, performing alongside him on stage. Their connection soon grew beyond music, leading them to marry in 1986. At the time, the union was kept hidden from the public, surprising even close friends who rarely saw Dylan discuss private matters. This secretive approach matched Dylan's reputation for guarding his personal life. The pair had a daughter named Desiree Gabrielle Dennis Dylan. While Dylan's fans already knew that his music was often influenced by his relationships, almost no one realized he had become a father again. The private nature of his wedding to Carolyn reflected Dylan's wish for a quiet life away from media hype. He faced intense scrutiny throughout his career, but with Carolyn, he managed to maintain a rare sense of calm. Their marriage remained under wraps for years, allowing them to share day-to-day routines without the constant flash of cameras. Despite early hopes for a lasting bond, the relationship did not go on forever. Dylan and Carolyn divorced in 1992, ending a chapter that stayed off the radar of most music journalists. However, even after this split, Dylan refused to dwell on the details of his personal life in interviews. For him, it seemed more important to channel his energy into new material and live performances. He had always been more comfortable sharing his feelings through lyrics rather than interviews. The true scope of Dylan's secret marriage finally emerged in 2001, when Howard Sounds published a memoir that revealed the story to the public. Fans were shocked to learn that Dylan, in addition to his other well-known relationships, had quietly married Carolyn and fathered a child with her. This discovery led to new discussions about the inspirations behind some of Dylan's songs during the late 1980s and early 1990s. Although he never provided a detailed breakdown of which tracks might reflect his hidden marriage, many listeners began to search unexplored corners of his work for clues. In the end, Bob Dylan's secret marriage to Carolyn Dennis adds another layer to the already complex portrait of this legendary folk rock artist. It stands as a reminder that even the most famous musicians sometimes crave normalcy. Though the public learned about their union years later, the marriage served as a private link between Dylan's creative genius and the day-to-day joys that shaped his life's journey. Spiritual journey. Bob Dylan's spiritual journey has taken many turns, starting with his Jewish upbringing in a small Minnesota town, moving through a well-known Christian phase, and arriving at a more personal sense of faith. Growing up in Hibbing, he was part of a close-knit Jewish community. At age 13, he celebrated his bar mitzvah, showing his early commitment to Jewish tradition. Family stories say that Dylan's grandparents escaped troubles in Eastern Europe to find hope in America, shaping his early sense of heritage. By the time he was around 30 years old, Dylan's spiritual path shifted again when he met Rabbi Meir Kahane, founder of the Jewish Defense League, during a visit to Israel. While he had long drawn on Jewish themes in his work, these conversations seemed to stir something new in him. But the biggest change came in the late 1970s, when Dylan, guided by the influence of friends and a vineyard pastor, accepted Christianity. He famously recorded several gospel albums, stirring debate among fans. Known for his Bob Dylan persona, it was a bold choice to embrace Christian faith so deeply in the public eye, yet it reflected the honest and spiritual side he had shown even in earlier music. During his born-again phase, Dylan gave curious interviews about how the Bible and Jesus had helped him see life in a fresh way. He went to Bible study seminars, read scripture, and poured these ideas into his songs. Classic folk troubadour style blended with gospel themes, creating music that spoke to a new audience. However, by the mid-1980s, Dylan began distancing himself from strict labels like Born Again. Instead, he seemed to describe a faith rooted in personal experiences. Although he still performed gospel tunes, he also embraced his Jewish roots by attending religious services, showing support for Chabad, and celebrating his children's bar mitzvahs. Over time, Dylan's comments and interviews suggested a deeply personal form of spirituality, one that brought together Jewish traditions, Christian imagery, and broader philosophical ideas. In later interviews, he mentioned lighting candles at church, studying the Psalms, and believing in a higher power who set the world in motion. Fans often discuss how his changing views appear throughout his lyrics. For Dylan, faith may be complicated, but it is a strong current running through his life. Whether guided by synagogue teachings, Christian fellowship, or quiet prayer, Dylan's spiritual journey has always found its way into his timeless music. Real estate portfolio. Bob Dylan's real estate portfolio offers a fascinating glimpse into the private life of a music legend known for keeping personal matters under wraps. While many people focus on his songs and spiritual shifts, Dylan's choice of homes shows a different side of his fast-paced worldwide lifestyle. One of his most famous properties is in Point Dume, Malibu, a breathtaking coastal spot where towering cliffs meet the Pacific Ocean. When Dylan is not on tour, he often spends time there, finding peace in the exclusive community's natural beauty. The home's location also gives him a convenient retreat near Los Angeles, allowing easy access to the city's music and film scene. Point Dume's charm has long attracted famous residents with the money to buy large plots of land by the sea. Dylan seems to enjoy the safety and privacy of living in an area known for its celebrity neighbors. Yet, at the same time, he can soak in the dramatic ocean views. Though he has found a special place in Malibu, Dylan is no stranger to other corners of the globe. Over the decades, he has built a far-reaching portfolio of real estate, holding properties in various parts of the world. Some may be spots for him to stay when performing in different countries, while others could be long-term investments. Music was the gateway to Dylan's fortune, but his interest in owning multiple homes appears to go beyond money. Each property likely offers a calm corner where he can focus on songwriting, rest from touring, or simply enjoy a new environment with fresh ideas. Fans tend to imagine him writing songs in a humble cabin, but the truth is, Dylan has been wise in planning for the future, investing in real estate just as carefully as he does in his art. This strategy mirrors how many other high-profile artists manage their wealth, by buying properties they can both use and later sell or rent when the time is right. Musical evolution. Bob Dylan's musical evolution spans many decades, beginning with his high school days in Hibbing, Minnesota. As a teenager, he formed bands like the Golden Chords, drawing inspiration from Elvis Presley and Little Richard. Back then, his rock and roll performances were so energetic that a school official once cut the microphone mid-song because it was deemed too loud. Soon, Dylan's love for folk music emerged, influenced by the deep storytelling and social messages found in older folk ballads. By the time he enrolled at the University of Minnesota, he had begun focusing more on songs that spoke of real-life struggles, changing his style from simple rock covers to thoughtful folk anthems. In 1961, Dylan's move to New York City changed everything. He wanted to meet Woody Guthrie, the folk pioneer who inspired him with tunes about ordinary people's hardships. In Greenwich Village, Dylan honed his craft, performing at coffee houses and befriending local artists. His earliest albums showed a strong folk influence, featuring protest songs that aligned with the civil rights and anti-war movements. Tracks like Blowin' in the Wind offered a bold voice for changing times. Eventually, Dylan's poetic lyrics and knack for catchy tunes set him apart from other folk singers. One of the biggest turning points in Dylan's career came in 1965, when he famously went electric at the Newport Folk Festival. Unafraid to experiment, he plugged in his guitar, backed by rock musicians Al Kooper and Mike Bloomfield. This move upset some folk purists who preferred acoustic guitars and forms of protest music. Yet it also drew a fresh wave of fans intrigued by Dylan's boundary-breaking energy. Albums like Bringing It All Back Home showcased both acoustic tracks and electric rock songs, proving Dylan was unafraid to blend genres. The single Subterranean Homesick Blues, with its rapid-fire beat poet-style lyrics, signaled the start of Dylan's more experimental phase. Over time, Dylan continued to reinvent himself. After a 1966 motorcycle accident, he stepped away from constant touring and leaned into quieter records, such as John Wesley Harding and Nashville Skyline, which were recorded with top-notch Nashville session musicians. These albums revealed a gentler singing voice and more spiritual themes. Decades later, Dylan would embrace everything from gospel to rockabilly, always surprising audiences with his next musical chapter. His 2020 release, Rough and Rowdy Ways, showed he still pushes boundaries, making Bob Dylan's long, winding road through music one of the most remarkable stories in popular culture. Rise to fame. Bob Dylan's rise to fame began in his teenage years in Hibbing, Minnesota, where he discovered the power of music through distant radio stations playing rhythm and blues, rock and roll, and country. Born Robert Allen Zimmerman, he briefly embraced rock in local bands like the Golden Chords, but soon found a deeper connection to folk music. Intrigued by songs that dealt with real-life struggles and socio-political matters, he gravitated toward the storytelling style of idols like Woody Guthrie. In 1959, after finishing high school, Dylan enrolled at the University of Minnesota. There, he immersed himself in the growing folk scene, performing at small venues while experimenting with the stage name Bob Dylan. Inspired partially by the poet Dylan Thomas, he believed that choosing a new name symbolized creative freedom. By January 1961, he was ready for bigger challenges and took the bold step of moving to New York City. His main goal was to meet the legendary Woody Guthrie, who, at that time, was hospitalized with Huntington's disease. Despite Guthrie's poor health, Dylan managed to learn from him and form valuable bonds with fellow folk musicians in Greenwich Village. His talent quickly caught people's attention, prompting his appearance on singer Carolyn Hester's album, where Columbia Records producer John Hammond first spotted Dylan's harmonica skills. Hammond soon signed Dylan to a Columbia contract, and in March 1962, Dylan's self-titled debut album was released. Though it sold modestly at first, this project put him on the map. As he honed his songwriting craft, Dylan turned from covering classic folk and blues numbers to writing original protest songs. These pieces reflected the social climate of the 1960s, resonating with young audiences seeking change. His second album, The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan, arrived in 1963, featuring iconic tunes like Blowin' in the Wind, which became an anthem for civil rights and anti-war movements. Dylan soon became a prominent voice of youthful protest, even if it meant clashing with television censors during his planned Ed Sullivan Show appearance. By 1964 and 1965, he was releasing even more influential music, including The Times They Are A-Changin', solidifying his place as a defining force in the folk scene. At the same time, he shared stages with Joan Baez, another champion of civil rights, helping to expand his following. Through determination, fearless songwriting, and a gift for connecting with restless spirits, Bob Dylan's early career laid the foundation for a legacy that would keep evolving for decades to come. Impact of relationships on music. Bob Dylan's relationships have played a key role in shaping his music, influencing both the content and emotional tone of many of his songs. Early on, people speculated that Girl from the North Country might have been inspired by Echo Hellstrom, reflecting how Dylan's personal life repeatedly influenced his lyrics. His first major romance was with Sue Ralston, a relationship that coincided with the start of his musical career. Their bond was so strong that she inspired tracks such as Don't Think Twice, It's All Right, and even graced the iconic cover of The Freewheelin' Bob Dylan. Though their love ended in 1964, those early experiences left a lasting mark on Dylan's creative process. Shortly afterward, Dylan struck up a musical and romantic partnership with Joan Baez, known as the Queen of Folk. Their shared passion for social justice and folk music fueled powerful performances, most notably at the Newport Folk Festival in 1963, bringing both of them international attention. Their closeness, captured in the documentary Don't Look Back, lit a spark that could be heard in Dylan's writing of protest anthems. However, by 1965, their romance was fading, symbolizing Dylan's ongoing pattern of intense creative unions that ultimately ran their course. In 1965, Dylan married Sarah, a pivotal figure during a time of transition in his music. Their home life brought stability as he navigated the shift to electric instrumentation and rising global fame. They had 4 children together: Jesse, Anna, Samuel, and Jacob, and also raised Maria, Sarah's daughter from a previous marriage. Though their marriage ended in 1977, the emotional journey they shared often surfaced in Dylan's lyrics, indicating both harmony and discord. Another significant relationship was his secret marriage to Carolyn Dennis, one of his backup singers. Their daughter, Desiree Gabrielle Dennis Dylan, was born in 1986, yet this entire chapter of Dylan's life stayed hidden until Howard Sounds' memoir in 2001. Fans then revisited countless tracks from Dylan's late 80s to early 90s catalog, seeking clues that might link his personal life to his constant musical reinvention. Legacy and modern achievements. Bob Dylan's legacy stretches over 6 decades, and his modern achievements prove he remains a force in music and culture. Even as new generations discover his older work, Dylan continues to surprise audiences with fresh material. Rather than rest on past triumphs, this legendary singer-songwriter keeps moving forward and experimenting. Fans appreciate how he balances tradition with innovation, making his songs relevant in every era. His journey from 1960s folk hero to today's global icon shows a rare ability to stay true to his artistic voice while still captivating new audiences. In March 2020, Dylan released the 17-minute track Murder Most Foul, exploring the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. Remarkably, it became his first #1 single on Billboard's Rock Digital Song Sales chart. He followed up with 2 more singles, I Contain Multitudes and False Prophet, which all led to his acclaimed 39th studio album, Rough and Rowdy Ways, released in June 2020. The album quickly climbed the UK charts, making Dylan the oldest artist to achieve a #1 spot with a record of original songs, an impressive milestone in his already storied career. His modern accomplishments also include major business moves. In December 2020, Dylan sold his entire song catalog to Universal Music Publishing Group for a figure believed to exceed $300 million. This record-breaking sale drew wide attention, highlighting the immense value of his timeless songwriting. Additionally, Dylan continues to entertain fans through unique projects like Shadow Kingdom, a 50-minute live stream from July 2021, as well as releasing Springtime in New York, the Bootleg Series Volume 17, that same year. He embraces modern methods too, such as the ionic original recording of Blowin' in the Wind, sold at auction in 2022. Yet Dylan is not just focused on selling music. He still enriches the cultural field by hosting events like the Dylan at 80 virtual conference in May 2021, where scholars, journalists, and fellow artists gathered to explore his life and work. In November 2022, he published The Philosophy of Modern Song, showcasing his deep reflections on music. Early this year, he revealed Fragments, Time Out of Mind Sessions, 1996 to 1997, allowing fans to dive into unique outtakes and live performances. Through it all, Bob Dylan's legacy continues to unfold, proving that his spirit of exploration and creativity is alive, well, and just as thrilling as ever.